5 weeks into the NBA season, the standings do not appear to be as expected. With most teams having played at least 20 games in their first 82 season game in 3 years, fingers crossed, favorites like the Bucks and Lakers are in play-in position, while the conference's top tiers are populated by more surprising candidates. Golden State has been the greatest early overachiever in terms of expectations, with an over-under projection of 48.5 wins, according to Basketball Vegas References Odds Archive. That translates to 5.9 expected wins out of every 10 games. But the Warriors are at a league best of 9-1, so they're already 3.1 wins or 31% ahead of expectations. Two teams that were expected to finish with losing records have also started the season strong and made their similar sizable strides. The Wizards are 7-3, while the over-under is 33.5 wins or 4.1 wins in 10 games. And the Cavaliers, who entered the season with the league's fourth lowest over-under total of 26.5 or 3.2 wins in 10 games, they've started at 6-4, now 7-4, more than doubling the expectation. Over the course of a season, Vegas odds are usually a good indicator of a team's quality. Looking at all 82-game seasons this century, a sample size of 565 teams, the 10 teams with the best over-unders finished with an average record of 59-23. The 10 teams with the worst over-unders finished with the reverse average record of 23-59. Overall, Vegas projections could accurately predict 56% of teams' final records over this time period. But once the season begins, what happens to teams like the Warriors, the Wizards, or Cavaliers? Should their hot starts influence our perceptions of their future chances in comparison to preseason expectations? Or should we, on the other hand, lose faith in early underachievers such as the Bucks, who entered the season with a 54.5 win over-under but have started 4-6? The answer, at least for the time being, is to make a few changes. Consider the biggest overachiever in the first 10 games of the 2018-19 season, the last season with 82 games. Denver, which started 9-1 despite a projected over-under of 47.5 wins. The Nuggets regressed and won at a 51 win pace the rest of the season, which was much closer to their initial projection than their play in the first 10 games. In many cases, the teams that surprised the most early in the season end up performing worse than expected for the rest of the season, albeit by a small margin. During the 2017-18 season, there were two major early overachievers. The Pistons, which started at 7-3 despite a 38.5 over-under, then won at a 36.5 win pace the rest of the way. The Knicks started at 6-4 despite a 30.5 over-under, then won at a 26 win pace the rest of the way. The previous season's biggest overachiever was the Lakers, who started 6-4 despite an over-under of 24.5. The rest of the season, they won at a rate of 23 wins per season. The Hawks were the second largest overachiever, starting 8-2 despite an over-under of 43.5, then winning at a 40 win pace the rest of the way. So on and so forth. Overall, we discovered that 10% of teams in this sample that performed the best in the first 10 games relative to preseason expectations won 77% of their first 10 games, compared to Vegas' projected win rate of only 49%. They won 55% of their games the rest of the way, much closer to their preseason projections. In the opposite direction, the same relation appears with early underachievers. So, if 10 games aren't enough to significantly change people's perceptions of a team's quality, how much data do we need to draw firmer conclusions? The answer is 25 games. After 10 games, a team's record predicts its performance for the rest of a regular season by 37%. At the same time, a team's preseason Vegas projection predicts its performance by 54%. However, by game 25, a team's actual early season record becomes more predictive than its Vegas projection for the rest of the season. Another method for predicting a team's future success is to use point differential, which is more useful than record because it offers a much wider range of outcomes than the simple win-loss binary. By game 17, point differential has caught up to Vegas projections and has surpassed them in terms of rest of season predictiveness by game 18. This timeline roughly corresponds to previous research from The Athletic's Seth Partnow, who used a different method of analysis and discovered that a team's net rating tends to settle after the first 15 to 20 games. It's easy to see why early season deviations from expectations often appear erratic in retrospect. A team's initial record can be influenced by a variety of contextual factors ranging from injuries and this season COVID-19 related absences to random luck to schedule disparities. The Wizards, for example, are 5-0 in clutch games in which they have been within 5 points in the final 5 minutes, an unsustainable pace. There isn't much reason to forecast the playoffs or title races until Thanksgiving, or at the very least until the 18-game mark, when point differential becomes a more meaningful indicator. By that point, everyone will be itching to get going. Well guys, thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. Be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to Sport Truffle, and ring that notification bell so that you never miss a video. Thanks for watching.